I'm Jordan from Jersey, joined tonight by Jim Dietz, Russell Latham, and special returning guest, although it's been a while, Mr. Aaron North. How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Doing great. I'm glad to have Aaron here with us. I mean, he's so cool to write those in-depth reviews of each episode of The Walking Dead for our site at hwled.com. And plus, of course, Aaron has a podcast of his own out now with Aaron and Abe where they review all the brand new movies on the theater. So it's great to have him on.
Well, thank you for the generous plugging, but yeah, I'm just happy to be here, and I certainly appreciate all the fans of the podcast who do read my reviews every week, because it's I try to put my effort in there and put my 2 cents in. So.
Well, tonight we'll be discussing Arrow on the Doorpost, the newest episode of The Walking Dead, and we got a voicemail and all kinds of other fun stuff, so we'll get to that right now. What do you think, gentlemen?
Yeah, sounds good.
No need for further ado.
So the episode starts with Rick, Daryl, and Herschel driving out somewhere. We're not exactly sure where it is at first, and it's definitely not a place we've seen in the show. There's grain silos, there's a barn. They seem to be scouting out the place, but you have no idea what they're doing. They finally enter a barn. Rick goes inside, and there's a table in the middle with 2 chairs. And as he approaches the table, who steps out of the shadows but the governor? He takes his gun out, he puts it away, and he says they have a lot to talk about. And that is our opening scene. So we've obviously had a little bit of a time jump here in the show from last episode.
Yeah, that was the first point I was going to make, is that definitely some time has passed since the last episode. I mean, we see that Rick and Michonne and Carl made it back to the prison, and now they're headed back out here. The whole opening part of this, there was no dialogue at all up until the point the governor steps in. And I thought that was a really cool choice for the first 2 or 3 minutes. It's totally silent. You just have Rick and Daryl motioning to one another as they're approaching the area, approaching those tanks in the barn. You see Herschel has now weaponized his leg in that little close up there inside his in the car. While he's driving. Because one thing I was thinking, I'm like, how is he operating the brake and the accelerator? But you look down, he's got the fake leg with the artillery duct tape to it. He's taking a page out of the moral handbook, I guess. But this opening just was a holy crap moment for me, just to see the governor and Rick in the same room. My jaw hit the floor. I had no idea and I had no expectation this is what was going to happen.
And before we get to them two getting face-to-face, like I said, that whole wordless opening scene, it was very reminiscent of the season premiere, and something was very nice to see again, just how much of an oiled machine this group is. And it's a good reminder of just how well they work together tactically as we get closer and closer to the inevitable showdown between Woodbury and the prison.
And it also shows how much of a lieutenant Norman Reedus' character, Daryl, has become to Rick. Where he's definitely Rick's right-hand man now. As they go in, they're just like, they have their lives in each other's hands, and they're definitely, the leader and his right-hand man for sure.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys just said. It actually is my favorite part of the episode, having this whole wordless open, which is just like the premiere. It just shows how efficient they all are, and is appropriately tense, just because it's like what's happening, what's going on. It's giving you information as you need it, not telling you exactly what's happening.
Right. And then once, of course, Rick and the governor get face-to-face, which they released that particular scene last week, I think during Talking Dead or maybe Comic Book Man, I forget off the top of my head. But that scene just so tense, and just you want to almost shout at the screen, shoot him, Rick, or don't trust him. Or it's a very reactionary scene, a scene that calls for audience reaction, and I think it's job pretty well.
Yeah, considering how far apart Rick and the governor were just a couple episodes ago, as far as Andrea, trying to be the mediator, but they just seem like they're on different 180 from one another. To see them both in the same room like this, and as we see in the episode, there's some really good close-up character acting between Andrew Lincoln and David Morrissey in these scenes as well. I really like the little Michael Corleone thing going on with the table. The governor takes off his belt, takes off his weapons, puts his hands up, sits down at the table where there's the pistol duct taped to the side, just like Godfather. I thought that was pretty cool. It just added to the tension.
Actually related to related to the scene in Heat where Pacino and De Niro meet up with each other.
Oh yeah.
So outside the barn, Daryl and Herschel are sitting out there. One up drives Martinez, Milton, and Andrea. And we kind of glean from what they say to each other that in the time jump between last week's episode and this week's episode, Andrea has brokered this summit between the governor and Rick so they can come to the barn and hopefully hash out peace terms. And so she goes inside the barn to join their negotiations. And Rick immediately jumps in with, okay, here's what we want. You got this river here in between Woodbury and the prison. You take everything on your side of the river. We take everything on our side of the river. We don't cross, not even to trade. We leave each other alone. And the governor promptly says there's no way that's happening. The only reason he's there is to accept the complete surrender of Rick and his group.
Well, there's that great scene that you just mentioned earlier where Martinez, Milton, and Andrea pull up, and Martinez and Daryl just look at each other, and at the same time, not only their eyes lock, but like the muscles in their neck clench. It's almost like when you drop two dogs together who don't know each other. You know what I mean? And they're both want to be supreme. They immediately are just like looking at, they look like they want to be at each other's throats. And Herschel even says, if things go south in there, you'll be at each other's throats soon enough. Why rush it? And I thought that was really cool. And as we see later, they have kind of a begrudging respect for each other later in the episode. But that first scene where they first pull up, it just immediate tension on both sides.
And there's a lot of good content between those two characters. Honestly, between all the character interactions between Woodbury group and the prison group that we haven't seen before, I thought played out pretty well.
They play out well. It's pretty convenient that both sides have the exact opposite of each other to play against this episode. But I mean, it's fun watching those two, the various interactions between Daryl and Martinez, Ursula Milton, and Rick and the governor, obviously.
And Andrea.
Andrea.
Coming soon to Nickelodeon. So the governor sends Andrea out of the room so that he and Rick can focus just on talking to each other, and so they can talk freely, because it's made pretty clear that Andrea does not understand everything that's happening, which we've talked about quite a bit, how much we know versus how much she knows the governor has done. And after Rick mentions a few things, he just hints on what happened with Maggie, and it's pretty clear that Andrea has no idea what he's talking about, and so that's why the governor sends her out. But this scene also did a good job of answering a few questions we've gotten from listeners, and then even discussed ourselves over the show, which is like, well, has Merle not told Rick about what the governor did to Maggie, or what he did with the National Guard? And while I don't think it's said in as many words, National Guard specifically, it's made pretty clear that somewhere off screen in between these two episodes, Rick has been fully informed of what the governor has been doing in Woodbury. And I think honestly, hindsight's 20/20, but looking back, this was probably the right decision. We didn't need 2 episodes of Andrea going back and forth and setting up this meeting place. We don't need all those scenes of Merle, laying out, and then the governor did this bad thing, and then the governor did this bad thing. In hindsight, I think it worked out pretty well to just, Rick knows, it's clear how he would have known, and let's just move on from there.
Yeah, it's funny because Rick says he knows about he says the raids.
Yeah, which I'm assuming means
that kind of alludes to that National Guard thing for sure. I thought anyway. And also the governor says that he knows about Rick too. He knows about Shane. He knows the fact that Laurie's baby might not be his. All these things about Rick. It's just really incredible to me that Andrea told the governor that much about Rick. So how
she really spilled the beans. Yeah.
Why would she?
She's got loose lips in more ways than one. Let's just put it that.
It seemed like odd pillow talk. Let's talk about the fact that this baby might be Shane's and all this other stuff. Let me fill you in all the backstory of Rick. And it made more sense that Rick knew about the governor than the governor knowing so much about Rick. I thought.
Yeah. Well, it's the apocalypse. You don't have Maury anymore, so how else are you gonna make that style of entertainment? You got to tell everybody.
It's just unfortunate too, because I've been fairly vocal that I don't care for how Andrea's being portrayed here, but she's not even in the scene, and she's still the worst thing about the episode because she told all these facts that really don't help Rick out at all. I was like, oh, thanks, Andrea, telling me that I might have this baby daddy situation going on here. But
am I missing something? Is there some other way the governor would have found all that out other than Andrea telling him?
Yeah,
Not,
if she read
I
the
mean,
blogs online, I don't know.
honestly, I think there is one other place he could have known, and this is probably the one place where maybe seeing how he learned this information could have been helpful, as opposed to like Rick learning about what he did. It's fine. He knows that we don't need to know the exact circumstances. But with Andrea, if it was her, when did you tell him? Was it before they even found Rick's group when she was just reminiscing about old times? Was it after? But I think the other place it could have come from is Tyrese's group. They were there for a few days, could have overheard a few stories. They passed that on to the governor because they're not present in this episode. But remember, they are in Woodbury. They could have told him stuff too.
Andrea didn't even know Shane was dead until the recent trip to the prison, right? So how would she know? She didn't know about the baby or whatever. And I mean, she knew the baby had been born, obviously, but I'm just thinking she would have had to have told him after her trip to the prison.
Well, unless that information came from Tyrese and his group.
Right.
They were there for a couple of days swapping stories. Rick wasn't there, so they could have been talking about him kind of freely, and it's one of those things you can talk about without giving away a tactical advantage, just explaining some of the stuff they've been through. Plus, like I said, there's no more, so what else are you going to do?
Yeah, but I feel like Carl was giving some pretty dead on looks to Tyrese's group. They probably wouldn't want to allow having those kind of conversations go on. Like, don't talk about my dad. So for now, I'm just saying, let's blame Andrea.
It just seems more plausible that Andrea would have told him rather than Tyrese.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, this is probably the one place where seeing how he got that information might have been helpful. But it was still, I thought, an effective scene when he drops that information and Rick is like, how the F do you know that?
Well, we'll find out next week in the Nikki and Paolo style Tyrese episode.
So, back inside the barn with the governor and Rick, the governor keeps trying different approaches to see what he can do to convince Rick of his rightness. He talks about how all the bad stuff, that was Merle. Merle did this, Merle did that. This was Merle's mistake. I just did what I had to do. He then offers Rick whiskey. Then again, like we talked about, he talks about everything with Shane. He then tells a story about how his wife died, which I think lines up with what he's told people before. So either well-rehearsed lie or is the truth. I honestly don't think it really matters. So then the governor takes off his eye patch and shows Rick exactly what was done to him and explains, here's my terms. You don't want to surrender, fine. I only want one thing. I don't want your stupid prison. I want Michonne. She did this to me. I want her. And he says, if you hand her over in 2 days over here at the barn, we let your group go free. Never bother us again. We don't bother you again. I just want Michonne. I want my revenge.
Yeah, so the governor lays out this plan, and I feel like I'm right away knowing that he's not going to take Michonne. Like that's not the only thing he wants. Like he's still going to probably kill Rick. Like I can't hold. I'm not going to hold the governor up to his word. So Rick needs to get a clue. But I'm
totally agreeing on you there. I mean, the way the governor's acted, thus far, his behavior. I think the viewers led to believe that there's no way he'll stop at just Michonne.
Never trust a man with one eye. Old pirate proverb.
Nick Fury.
You should never trust Nick Fury.
Yeah, he was telling the whole truth in the Avengers.
I mean, I think he's an awesome character, comic books and movies, but you never want to trust him. He will screw you over. It doesn't matter what side you're on.
But okay, so backtracking a little bit, I do like the governor trying to appeal to Rick in various forms, and Rick just not being fooled by any of them. Like he brings up the Merle did everything. Rick comes back, he's like, "Well, you can't take responsibility." Then he tries to offer whiskey, and like, I'm not drinking. I'm talking business here. And then even if he does take a drink, he's not about to get drunk with the governor. He wants to talk about his people, wants to get the job done. And then the governor tries to lay down a sympathetic story. Now, when he tells a sympathetic story, about his wife dying, I'm thinking everyone's lost something, right? Like I wouldn't think that's much of an appeal either. I get, but he's trying to. I guess Rick is he just got back from dealing with his dead wife walking around in front of him, so I guess that maybe could put him over the edge. But then
are you waiting for it to be like that? All you got? Have I got a story for you?
Yeah, my son had mercy kill my wife, and she gave birth to my daughter. Top that, biatch.
So yeah, then okay, give us Michonne, and so that presents an intriguing idea. But again, I'm not trusting the governor at any point in this. But at least I guess Rick's attention. He has curiosity now. He has his attention.
Right. To quote a very fun movie. Well, before we continue on with the rest of the synopsis, Russ, why don't you tell us about our wonderful sponsor?
Sure will. Our sponsor, as always, for the Walking Dead TV podcast is Discount Comic Book Service. That's dcbservice.com, where you can get all of your comics, graphic novels, trade paperbacks, digital comics even, for incredibly low prices. This month, some Walking Dead-related items worthy of note are Walking Dead Monthly issue number 110. And you can get it for 40% off at $1.79. There's also, for you high rollers out there, there's a Walking Dead Michonne resin statue, which is pretty cool looking. That one is $289.06. That's $289. So if you're really into The Walking Dead and want something really cool, you can check that out. There's also some really cool Walking Dead TV bookends. Those are 20% off at $71.20. If your tastes go towards more of the traditional comic side, Marvel's been doing their initiative they call Marvel Now, and you can get a bundle of all of the current Marvel Now titles for 50% off. So instead of paying $149.59, you will pay $74.79. And continuing on this month, all Marvel hardcovers trades and DC hardcovers and trades are all 50% off. So there's some really cool stuff this month. Marvel 1602, the 10th anniversary edition oversized hardcover, is only $14.99. So that's a definite steal. The March orders have just come out, so you got to the end of the month to get those in. If you're into digital comics, definitely check out their link to the Comixology site, where you can earn 5% of your digital purchases towards your regular order on the main DCBS site. And as always, use the code WD8 if you're a first-time orderer, or if you haven't ordered in the past year. That definitely helps us out by letting them know that you're a listener to our show and patronizing our sponsor. So again, we thank DCB Service for their sponsorship of the Walking Dead TV podcast.
Yes, we do. So outside, while Rick and the governor are having their negotiations, we catch up with the rest of the characters. Daryl and Martinez go and kill some walkers and share some cigarettes eventually. At first, they hate each other, but then they come to begrudgingly respect each other in the way you'd expect, but it's still really fun to see them interact, and especially see them try to one-up each other killing zombies, which, of course, Daryl wins.
Well, the funniest part of that was, like, after you. Oh, no, after you. And then Andrea just looks at them both, like, rolls her eyes and then gets the first zombie kill.
They have a walker stick measuring contest.
Right.
My zombie's bigger than your zombie.
It is interesting, too, because they're just messing with each other. They call each other names, douchebag and stuff. And, Daryl tries to make peace and offers him a cigarette. He's like, no, I prefer menthol. They're just being like total dicks to each other, and then finally, he ends up, accepting the cigarette from Daryl, and they kind of, Daryl, I mean, they have the understanding that, in a few days they're going to be at war with one another. You know what I mean? That scene is, I really like some of the character work in this episode, even though, like Aaron said, it is kind of convenient that each, group's opposite number showed up for the negotiation or whatever. But I mean, the character work between, Daryl and Martinez here, they're just kind of like, they're not going to come to an agreement. We're going to be, going at it, and they're just like, yep, they're just kind of resigned to the fact that in a few days they're going to have to kill one another.
But honestly, I mean, well, yes, I would say obviously Daryl and Martinez are each other's opposite number, and we'll get to Herschel and Milton in a second. But I wouldn't say Herschel and Milton are each other's opposite.
They're the right-hand advisor. They're like the consigliere. I hate to keep using Godfather things, but they're like, it does. I mean, Herschel is definitely Rick's consigliere. I mean, everything, and even later when Rick comes to Herschel and tells him about the governor's offer from Michonne, I mean, that's Rick's counsel, and that's Milton is the governor's counsel. He's the one that's totally loyal, faithful to him, and counsels him on what to do next and stuff. So I definitely see them as each other's opposite number.
Right, but I think my point was more, this isn't like that scene in Shaun of the Dead where Shaun and his group come up against Yvonne and her group that are pretty much literally clones of each other. I mean, at least in this case, having your advisor and your muscle there at this negotiation makes quite a bit of sense.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I definitely think they're similar in position, and I think that's what Jim's getting at. They're definitely character-wise and the way they behave very, very different from each other. But yeah, I think it's just the whole. I've got my number one, muscle and my number one advisor with me on each side of the fence, and then Andrea is obviously the middle woman.
Right. The Herschel and Milton scene's pretty funny. At first, they're a little bit standoffish. Then they get to talking. Milton asks about what happened with Herschel's leg. Herschel explains what they had to do, and Milton is immediately fascinated by this, being the self-taught scientist that he is. And so, of course, he has to see Herschel's stump. And, of course, as we remember from the beginning of the episode, Herschel has guns duct taped to his leg, so he can't exactly show him. So he makes the joke, you gotta at least buy me a drink first, and they get to share a laugh.
It's the most genuine part of the episode. It is a fun moment that they both put their guard down, even though Herschel is obviously hiding the fact of something. He's quick on his feet, and he comes up with a way to defuse the situation, which it made me laugh. So.
Right.
One of the things I'll say, and sorry, my internet has not been kind to me this episode, but did anybody else find the scenes outside of Rick and the Governor much more interesting than the Rick and the Governor scenes?
Yes, I did.
I mean, that's how I felt the whole episode. I was happier, and I was much more in tune with what was going on outside that room than what was going on in that room. And not to say that I didn't think the scene with Rick and the Governor was necessary. It just seemed like it took a long time and not a lot. I mean, in the end, not a lot really happened. I mean, and I know a lot of it was meant to them feeling each other out. This is the first time they sat down. This is how they're trying to figure out what each other's all about, what they believe, what they don't believe, all that kind of stuff. And I get that, but I just didn't find it as interesting as it had its moments. But overall, I didn't find it as interesting as the interactions with the characters outside of the meeting room and then back at the prison. I just thought those interactions were much better character moments than even the Rick and Governor stuff.
Yeah, Russ, I actually am completely on the same page as you, because I do think that while Rick and the Governor, they're, of course, they're Andrew Lincoln and David Morrissey, they're good actors, and I think they get their moments to do some things that work for the episode. But yes, I had a lot more interest in what was going on outside, just because the inside stuff it kind of reflects my thoughts on the episode overall. But it didn't quite reach the tension that I think this episode wanted to reach for me. Like, I get that they're obviously opposing figures, but it's not like I think either of them's going to die this episode. No one really thinks that, but the show didn't create what it needed, I think, to fully make it seem like a really tense situation. Oh my God, Rick and the Governor facing off with each other. What's going to happen? It didn't have me on the edge of my seat watching those scenes. But yeah, they have the moments, but not quite as interesting as having, hey, what do Herschel and Milton talk about? Like,
if this was a season finale, or even like the season 4 mid-season finale, then maybe my antennas would have been raised up a little bit to say, maybe somebody's not going to walk out of that room. Maybe it could possibly even be Rick. You just never know. But given where we are in the season, and it's still very early in this conflict between these two groups, again, I just didn't feel that there was any peril. And I don't think that was really the point. I don't think they were trying to make you feel like, oh, one of them's going to get blown away. But it did tend to dial it back some, at least from an expectation standpoint.
Well, I think Martinez and Daryl almost sum up some of the episode by saying that it doesn't matter because we're going to be fighting anyway, basically explaining that this episode doesn't quite matter, and it does feel like filler, and that's kind of where I came at it with this episode, even though I do recognize that there are good things in it. We'll talk about that more as we go on in the episode.
I was kind of hoping the impending threat of Merle showing up would, culminate in him going down there and then really sparks would fly. I thought that like you say, the interaction of the characters outside, they seemed to have kind of an understanding of one another, whereas Rick and the Governor didn't seem to have an understanding of one another at all. There's kind of a lot of posturing and a lot of the Governor trying different approaches on Rick and Rick not buying any of it. I thought there'd be more of a progression of the plot from their meeting, but there really isn't. They're pretty much right. While we find out at the end of the episode, they're right where they were pretty much before they met. So I don't know. I did buy the tension, especially when they showed the other gun duct tape under the table. I thought that was going to come into play at some point, but it didn't really. Well, I guess. But yeah, I was expecting more to happen, I guess, than just them like drinking whiskey and then parting ways.
Chekhov's duct tape gun.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, with them planning to re-meet there in 2 days, that gun might come back into play.
I hope so. They introduced it. So.
Like maybe Rick and his group check out the room and find the gun and leave it there, but unload it first, and you can have all kinds of fun with it. So while Herschel and Milton are having their story, and Daryl and Martinez are having their story, eventually Andrea comes around, and because she had overheard snippets of Maggie's name between Rick and the Governor, she asked Herschel about it and finds out what happened, at least in abbreviated terms, what happened to Maggie. I believe Herschel's exact words were, the Governor's a sick man. And she is told in no uncertain terms by Herschel, you are welcome from us, but wherever you go tonight, that's pretty much where you're going to stay. Wherever you end up, that's your choice. But the decision pretty much has to be made right now.
I like that too, because I got the feeling they were being purposely vague with the details of what happened with Maggie, because the look on Andrea's face, there was a lot of disgust there, and I think that Andrea thought that he pretty much sexually assaulted her. I mean, not that making somebody take off their shirt and bend over a table and come up behind him is not a form of sexual assault, but they made it seem that he was a lot more aggressive, violently, physically than he actually was, which I think was kind of a smart play, because to some degree, I think she needs to be knocked over the head a little bit with how bad this person is, and I think
more than a little bit. But
yeah, and I think she's almost there. I think she knows that something's not right. I mean, the look on her face, even when she was leaving at the end of the episode, you could tell she's there. And then granted, what happened at the end of the last episode, I think she's there. I'm not sure what her game is. And I think we're going to see it play out here pretty quick. But that part I really liked. I really liked them amping that up, and Andrea starting to kind of gravitate more towards understanding who this guy really is.
I mean, that all happened while she was sleeping with him. So I mean, that's got to impact her. That's got to have it's got to have some impact on her character's trajectory going forward for sure.
This is why Herschel's my rock. Like every week, if he just knocks some sense into somebody, whether it be Rick and his craziness or Andrea and her being a terrible character, I mean, I'd be content with Herschel just being like, listen, do this. Like that's all I need to hear.
That's what really scares me about the fact that he's like an also starring, or he's not in the main credit scene, so he's not a full primetime player or whatever.
I know.
It scares me because I'm like, any minute now.
Carol wasn't either though. I mean, Melissa McBride is still second string credits too, and she's been around longer than a lot of people are. Some of the people in the first string. So.
Yeah, I like that more tension is being created out of the fact that people aren't in the main cast than the actual show's providing it.
And the Sarah Wayne Kelly's is still in the credits. Even though her character's been dead for how long now?
Well, she showed up.
I know, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that maybe again I think it's kind of cool because it truly keeps you guessing because we have seen people that have been main credit players that have been summarily dispatched, and then we see people that are secondaries or quote secondaries. I think it's just more a pay thing in a Hollywood bookkeeping thing than it is anything else. If and Aaron, you probably speak to that more than I could, but
yeah, because that's how like Norman Reedus played out in that one too. Like he was just like he became a guest star and now he's like full player of the cast. But I mean Herschel hasn't been around, so it's as well as bread. But two of what I think are two of the best actors on the show.
Yeah. I mean, go back and listen to our podcast. I always sing the praises of Scott Wilson.
I'm aware. I know Scott Wilson. We are fans of on the show.
He was the best thing about the Judge Dredd movie too. But anyway.
That bit last or a couple weeks ago when he just yells at Rick, "Get back here!" That's probably like my favorite Scott Wilson moment of the whole series. That was just
that's good. Yeah,
it was just awesome, just very commanding. Just I don't know, just something about that voice.
So while all this is going on over at the nondescript meeting barn, at the prison, we've got Merle, who is really upset about his brother going off to this meeting. He's worried that he's going to get killed. And so he wants to use all the newly acquired guns they got from Morgan last episode to go attack the meeting. But the others are afraid, people are going to get hurt. Merle tries to argue about this. He has a throwdown with Glenn, and Maggie gets Merle in a headlock. And then eventually, when it's all seeming about to go very badly, who should break everything up with a gun fired in the air? Beth. Finally getting to fire a gun on the show.
Old Tom Waits loving Beth.
Put this baby down to fire this gun in the air.
Here's I have one thought on this, and I have no reason right now to think that Merle is still working for the governor. I know I think Jordan, you teased that idea too. I thought of that in that last episode before the mid-season break.
It seems very unlikely.
It seems very unlikely at this point. However, not that I'm considering this to be something that I'm playing up in my mind, but Merle seemed very, very content that he needed to get to the barn and he needed to protect Daryl and Michonne needed to come with him. So it made me think that if they were really trying to stretch this out and make that Merle is in fact still with the governor, this kind of maybe was a hint at that. I don't think that's it. But
one other thing, now that you mentioned that sticks out to me is the governor knew about all the guns they'd gotten. Mm-hmm. How in the world did he know that? Because I don't think they would have told Andrea, and we don't have any reason to believe she's been back inside the prison since last time, although she's obviously contacted Rick somehow. Merle to me seems like the most likely person to know about those guns. Certainly not Michonne giving the information over.
Either that or the governor just has some guy that just camps out outside the prison to keep tabs on them. That'd be my only other guess.
Could be, but it's not like they unloaded the guns in plain sight or something. They were in bags and they were in vehicles.
Did he make it seem like he knew that they had recently resupplied with guns? Or
he made it very clear.
He directly sent a line that said, "You boys came back the other day with a bunch of guns or whatever." He knows that they have a lot more weapons than they did.
I wonder if he just has somebody staking it out. Like he's just got a rotating crew of people that just sit there, and just watch.
That was my initial thought, assuming that it doesn't involve Merle in any way. And so we'll see, I guess.
Because I can't imagine they'd let Merle out of their sight. I mean, so that doesn't seem likely that he would.
I can't imagine that they let Merle walk around the prison and have access to the guns, but they seem to be content with that. So I don't know what their relationship with Merle is in the prison. He seems to have given what Merle has done, he seems to have pretty free reign around the prison.
And all he really needs is like a walkie-talkie or something.
He walks around with a shiv arm, for God's sake.
Yeah, the whole walkie-talkie thing, I doubt seriously they would have that kind of range. I'm guessing
it goes back and forth to how far are these two places away from each other, really.
Yeah, but without any kind of repeater towers that are actually still running and powered and stuff like that, probably not happening.
He's got a shortwave radio built into his arm.
Maybe he's got Ravens, like Game of Thrones style.
They use Morse code.
Yeah, out where we are, if you can get a few miles away from a good repeating tower, and even with a pretty decent radio, a fairly high-powered radio, and with a good antenna, and it's hard to reach, into our dispatch area, which is like between 7 and 8 miles away. So it would be highly unlikely to me. Good point.
That is true.
We also have a nice scene with Maggie and Glenn where Glenn is on watch and Maggie comes out to talk to him, and they argue for a bit before they reconcile. Glenn apologizes for making everything between her and the governor about him, and then they start making out. Glenn decides he does not want to do so in front of the zombies, and really I don't blame him. So they go back inside what they're calling the Talking Dead, the sex garage, and they really reconcile inside.
Yeah, we see quite a lot of reconciliation going on. I really wanted to see Beth or Carl walking on them. I was waiting for this to happen because that scene was going on for so long. It seemed I was like, when's someone walking in?
Well, I was more waiting for Glenn was on watch, and all of a sudden there's nobody on watch in probably the worst possible time to have no one on watch. Right. I was waiting for something to go very poorly that way. Like all of a sudden the garage door just opens up and there's 30 people outside with guns.
That's why I figured like Carl would burst and be like, "What are you guys doing? You're not on watch. There's walkers everywhere." And they're like, "Whoa, what am I seeing?" Like I don't know what to expect. But...
So the meeting over at the barn ends, and our respective groups make their way back to their homes. We have some musical overlay for the scene as it cuts back and forth. We see that Andrea has indeed chosen to return to Woodbury at the governor's side. Unfortunately. But I think, judging by the scene they showed from next week's episode, which I won't spoil, but that seems like it could lead some interesting places, but that's all I'll say. So the governor goes back to Woodbury, and he tells Martinez in confidence that they're going to set up an ambush at the barn. And the moment they see that Rick has brought Michonne, they're going to massacre everybody and just bring Michonne back alive so they can take care of her. And Milton is told as well, and he says basically that's a massacre. Or I guess the governor says this is the best way to avoid a slaughter. And Milton says, no, that is a slaughter. And we can see that Milton is definitely having some problems with what the governor wants to do, particularly after he's met the opposition and shared a laugh with them.
That was a good Milton scene. Like that was, and having Milton be a character who it's hard to get behind, is because I get that he doesn't like the dark side of the governor and the things that he's been doing, but he is that guy that's also following along with these things. And you can argue it's for the sake of his own survival, but that was a good scene that like conveyed to me like Milton, I'd like to see him make it out of this if he can.
Right. And honestly, I don't think I see Milton making it out of, I don't know if I'd say the season, but the storyline alive. Like, I have a feeling he's one of the people who gets cut down. Yeah. I'd actually kind of like to see him join Rick's group. I think, just judging by that scene with him and Herschel, he could make a pretty interesting addition to the cast.
I would agree with that, yeah. So, it seems unlikely, but I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of Milton being still on board next season.
Yeah, I think Dallas Roberts really brings like a weirdness to that character that's kind of appealing in a strange, icky kind of way.
And now that Glenn has kind of transferred away from his inherent nerddom, and I don't say that as a negative, not like they've abandoned his character, but just as he's kind of testosterone up, so to speak. It'd be nice to have a bookish, nerdy character in the cast, because that's an archetype they don't really have right now.
Well, once Beth's contacts dry up and she has to start wearing her glasses again, maybe she can turn into that character.
Meanwhile, at the prison, Daryl and Herschel and Rick return, and Rick tells his people that the governor is not going to accept their terms, and it's going to be war. He leaves out the Michonne part completely, and then he later tells Herschel what really happened, and says that basically he told everyone this to scare them. And I got the impression that he scared them because he's really considering taking the Michonne deal, and he says to Herschel, basically, I'm telling this so you can talk me out of it. But he knows the governor's probably going to betray him, but he's not sure he can bet his son and daughter's life on this, and he basically wants to scare everyone so badly that when he gives them the option of, hey, if we give Michonne, he says he'll let us go, that they take that plan.
Yeah, this threw me back and forth, because at first I was like, okay, Rick's not going to take this Michonne deal at all, he's leaving it out, and then he goes and tells Herschel that, oh yeah, by the way, this Michonne deal's happening. But then he also kind of conveys the fact that I don't know if I can trust it. So eventually it worked out, and I'm like, okay, Rick's not too dim here, he knows that the governor's a liar, but we'll see how that goes.
I think after all the confrontation with him in the barn or whatever, their little tete-a-tete, as it were, I think he still realizes that he can't trust him, so hopefully that will be the way it plays out, because it's pretty obvious that, the governor is not of good intent. He's not going to just take Michonne and walk away. It's obvious there, the viewer, I think it'd be obvious to him as well.
And it's interesting, back at Woodbury, the governor tells Andrea, oh, everything's going to work out just fine. We've got these peace accords on the table. We're going to work it out. So he's lying to his people, or at least to Andrea, and probably to the townspeople as well. And Rick's lying to his people, once again blurring that line between good and evil. But both leaders willing to mislead their groups for theoretically the good of those groups.
The Greys are good.
It's so funny. It's like, what's he supposed to tell Andrea? Well, your friend who said I was totally evil. Yeah, if I get to kill her, your friends go free. So I get to prove that she's totally right. I am totally evil.
Right. So that is the episode, Arrow on the Doorpost, and we have a voicemail about this episode. So gentlemen, let's play that now.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about last week's episode, Clear, where Rick and them, it kind of reminded me of the 18 Miles Out episode, and at the end of it, when Rick's sort of in the passenger seat and he's kind of looking out as they're driving away, it sort of reminds you of Shane in a similar situation just a season ago where he was sort of being brought back to the group, like, you welcome him back, we need you. And then obviously the group needs Rick to come back. Obviously there's going to be a lot different results because Rick's the star of the show, but now I do want to talk about this week's. Man, that made me so nervous seeing the governor and Rick sitting there. I'm like, Rick, don't sit down. This guy's going to shoot you in the chest. I was so nervous. The show's doing a great job making him a villain because I can't wait to see him die, but I don't want it to come in a bad way like this man. I just can't wait for that showdown. And I think Andrea, does she make her choice there? Is that what that was, a crossroad for her, where she goes with the governor's people, she's on that side, she goes with Rick, he's on his side? I still don't see her being a part of a group that hits the prison to assault and kill them, especially Michonne. And I love that the governor thinks Rick's stupid enough to actually give up one of his best killers just to sort of make temporary peace, even though he's trying to pretend like it's the real peace. I just wanted to comment on that stuff. I love the show, God, man. That was awesome. But yeah, love the podcast, you guys. Good job. Just wanted to drop a line. Cool. Take care. Bye.
Well, thank you very much for that voicemail. So is that Andrea's final decision?
I don't think so. A couple things before we get started. For the gentleman that left us the voicemail, we really, really appreciate it. I think it's the second voicemail. I think he left us one last week. If you could just tell us who you are, we'd love to give you credit and give you a shout out for leaving us that voicemail on the show. Unless you want to stay anonymous, which that's totally cool too. But it'd be nice to give you recognition for being involved in the show.
I like that he really likes the show. Like, I'm happy that people like the show, like how it's progressing. Like, I'm just critical just because I am by nature. I try to express my thoughts on it accordingly.
Well, it is your job.
I know, but it's and I love last week's episode, which is why I'm harder on an episode like this, which I just don't think quite rises up to the top. But I'm so happy that other people just really embrace the fact that the governor's this evil guy, and they hate him, but they love him also because he's so evil, and they like seeing him, even though they want him to, eventually meet his maker.
And I kind of kept quiet before when you asked about wasn't the stuff outside so much better, but I'm kind of in our anonymous callers camp where, I definitely like the stuff outside, but I was equally brought in by the tension inside. I like that kind of stuff. No, did I expect either one of them to die in that episode? Absolutely not. But I could see one of them getting shot or maimed or otherwise injured, and even without that, I thought the tension between them, the verbal tete-a-tete, was interesting enough to hold my attention and to hold my attention and to be really tension filled. So I enjoyed it quite a bit.
So getting back to his voicemail, right, about Andrea.
Yeah, do you think she's able to make it out of this season alive and back with Rick's group?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think that's possible. It's not necessarily something I want to see happen, but yeah, she's probably going to eventually wise up. And even at the end of this episode, it seems like Herschel probably got to her, and we didn't really see the end of their conversation, so she might have more going on in mind than we're privy to at this moment. So next week,
yeah, I think
I see it. I'm sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think she has a really big role to play in the season finale. That's just my prediction.
I think it's going to go one of two ways when it all hits the fan. Either she's going to go back into Rick's group and join the fold, or if they decide to get rid of the governor, I think she takes over Woodbury and amicably splits between Rick's group, and that she's just kind of there to come back to now and again as the series moves forward. But who knows?
I could totally get behind that idea. I think that'd be interesting. It'd be a good way for them to kind of write her off the show for a bit, and then that way when she shows up half season or a full season or a season and a half later, they can have dramatically overhauled her character to deal with a lot of fan complaints, and it can be explained away by, hey, she's a different person. It's been a year and a half, and she's gone through a lot. She's grown as a person, and hey, also she's an awesome sniper now. Whatever they want to do to deal with the problems that a lot of people have with the character. Which again, I don't really have so much. I have some problems with the character, but they can definitely take that. If they did go down that road, they could use that as an opportunity to address a lot of those issues.
Well, if she became the new governor, she certainly has Woodbury resident Karen's vote, and her son with asthma.
I was going to say, as long as she keeps his asthmatic son, or her asthmatic son out of the army.
So what were your Buster ratings this week, gentlemen? Aaron, since you're our guest, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. So in my written review, I put a 3.5 Busters, and because I know you guys, you tend to go even in between those with the 4.25s and stuff like that, and I try not to do that just because I'm used to reviewing movies, of course, so just kind of stick to my own star system. But I would say 3.5 Busters, but 3.75 for the sake of the show is kind of where I'm leaning to, because I do like a lot of things about it. I think the actors do a good job with what they're given here. I think that has a lot of strong moments, but overall, I do think it just feels like it's back to filling out time before we get to more inevitable places that the season has to go.
I also give it a 3.5, or I guess you give it 3.75. I give it a 3.5. Again, it seems like when we give it a low, quote-unquote, low rating that we're being a little harsh on the show, and I don't think that's the case. I think it's just I enjoy the show very much. I don't watch too many live shows on television or watch them even week to week. I typically let stuff build up. Granted, we do a podcast, so we have to keep up, but even if I wasn't doing a podcast, I'd still be keeping up. So when you have to rank things, everything can't be a 5 and everything can't be a 2. So I think this was a fine episode. There's nothing that really made me roll my eyes. There's nothing that I really can stand out and say I didn't like. I just think it was another one of those episodes that is necessary, that has to push the story along and move the pieces on the board a little more to get them to the point where I'm assuming we'll hit at the end of this season, set up for the beginning of the next season. I think it was important that Rick and the governor had this meeting to feel each other out and to make it a little more personal. If this whole thing took place with the two of them never having really met face to face, then there's not much weight to it when this inevitable conflict or confrontation takes place. I mean, we've seen it a couple times already. So for me, again, like I said, I think it was a fine episode. I think it was better than average, but definitely not in the upper echelon of episodes that we've seen so far, particularly this season.
Yeah, it's like, cause, it's like, I really love last week's episode. I gave that a 5, and I don't do that very often, and it's just, this one doesn't, it's not the same, so I naturally have to rate it lower.
I give this a straight up 4 out of 5. I'm not going to go into the decimals this week. I don't mind the character moments at all. I thought some of them were pretty cool. I really liked the Martinez and Daryl, like we said, in the Herschel and Milton. And I thought there were some really good acting moments there with Andrew Lincoln and David Morrissey as well. Even though little got accomplished, as far as the plot is concerned, derailing the inevitable clash between Woodbury and the prison. I thought there were some good acting moments there, and it was enjoyable. And it was definitely not what I was expecting at all after last week. So I definitely give it a straight 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
I would give the episode a even 4. I mean, like you guys said, it's certainly not as standout as last week's episode, but I really did enjoy it. I thought it was tension-filled where it needed to be, and it was fun and interesting and characterly introspective, which doesn't make any sense, but it was introspective on the characters outside, which was a lot of fun as well. So, I mean, all around I thought it was solid. Not standout, but definitely solid. So 4 for me. What did our fans on Facebook have to say about the episode?
We got generally positive ratings. Luke Smith FX gave it a solid 4 out of 5. Wasn't what I expected, and the tension got me at the edge of my seat. Don Heffern gave it a 4.5 again, which is what he gave it last week as well. 3.75 from Rob Toll. Max Sofer gave it a 4 out of 5 stale cigarettes. I like the action, but when they have this little of it and make an episode this intense, it makes for a good one for me. Robert Nigro gave it a 3 out of 5 brought whiskeys. Newton Knight gave it 4.5 out of 5 baseball bats, very tense, reminiscent of Nebraska. I agree. They definitely, that kind of tension in the room, being able, somebody going off in any moment that really was reminiscent of Nebraska. And that was one of my favorite episodes from that season. Leslie Johnson 4.5. Everard gave it a 4.5. John Joblin gave it a 4 out of 5 stump arsenals. And Mike Jones gave it a straight up 5 out of 5. Terry Bernard gave it a 4. Herschel laughing at his own jokes out of 5. Shane Jenkins gave it a 4 driving Miss Herschels out of 5. Good episode. I didn't think it was quite as good as last week. Roger Austin 4.5 out of 5 zombie throwing knives. That was a pretty sweet move on Gerald's part this week. And Philip Hurst 3.75 T-Dogs. Keep on pointing out for T-Dog there. If you'd like to be part of our Facebook group, it's pretty active. Just check out Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook groups, and we are there, and we put a lot of good news tidbits up. You can link right from there to Aaron's review every week, and there's a lot of good stuff, so check it out.
And Brad couldn't be with us this week, but he did send in a bunch of Twitter Buster ratings. So what do the people on Twitter have to say?
Carl Hooker gave it 4 out of 5 drunken Herschel stumps. Meg Stewart gave it 4.5 Herschel stumps. We got Icarus Artukovic gave it 3.5 busters out of 5. Court gave it 3.75 busters. Buster gave it 4.5 busters. And we got a couple comments here.
Buster is usually pretty generous with the busters, though.
He is, though. That is true.
That's just his way.
Rob Perez just gave us a little mention. Said Rick. He said Rick can't believe that the governor is going to stop once he gets Michonne. So
I think we all agree with that too. I mean, we're talking
yeah,
about
yeah. That's all we had for this week.
So anything else you guys want to add before we close out the episode this week?
3 more episodes left this season.
Man, we're getting there.
I know.
So what do you guys? I mean, do you think that the Woodbury prison, conflict will be reconciled by the end of the season, or do you think it's going to be the cliffhanger going into next season?
I do. I think it'll be. I mean, it's a season finale for a show of this magnitude that has big audience base every week. Last season, you had the giant barn burn down. I mean, it makes sense for me to see a giant war happen between Woodbury and the prison.
I think Woodbury will survive, though. I think the governor won't make it out, but I think Woodbury will survive. I like Russ's idea quite a bit about Andrea taking over. I think that's fairly likely, and I think it's a good place to be able to return in the future and have some stories without the governor as well.
If we learn more about Karen, that's fine by me.
I would not vote against that.
I know I've said this in the past, but I think that the governor, Woodbury, that they're going to both be make it out just fine at the end of the season. I think something tells me this season is going to have a serious, real cliffhanger. I think up until this point we haven't really gotten a true cliffhanger, like everybody on the edge of their seat. Literally like the end of Star Trek, the Next Generation. Picard is a Borg kind of cliffhanger get out of the show. And I think something's going to happen this season that's going to give us that. And I think Morrissey will be back as the governor for next season. And I think it'll resolve itself next season. But I think they're going to carry this forward.
Yeah, no, Rick's going to call it. He's going to firebomb the city. He's going to burn it down.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Of course, stick around because after the ending, we'll of course have our slightly spoilery look towards next week. But until next episode, you can leave us a voicemail at 516-468-7912. That's 516-468-7912. We'd love to hear from you. Or alternatively, you can send us an email, comments at walkingdeadtv.com. And of course, you can check out all of our other fine shows at hhwlod.com, like Half Hour Wasted, Legion of Dudes, Peabody Black Box, Brand New Jersey Shore, and of course, Out Now with Aaron and Abe. Aaron, why don't you tell folks about your fine little program?
Oh yeah, Out Now with Aaron and Abe. It is myself and my co-host Abe, along with a few guests every week. We talk about whatever the biggest movie release of the week is. This week in particular will be Oz the Great and Powerful, and of course we'll cover the upcoming movies. I think G.I. Joe comes out in a few weeks from now, and we're actually getting close to our 100th episode. So we're having a lot of fun talking about the movies on our show.
Very, very cool. And you can follow us on Twitter at WDTV Podcast and at HHWLOD_network. And so until there's no more room in hell and the dead walk the earth, remember, ladies, you're more than welcome to see my stump. But come on, buy me a drink first. Have a good week, everybody.
Walk out.
Every day I'll be stumping.
Every day I'm stumping.
Ding, 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 ding. So next week on The Walking Dead, remember, spoilers, the episode is entitled Prey, P-R-E-Y, and the very short plot synopsis we have is, with the governor busy pursuing a runaway dissenter, a traitor looks to sabotage his plans. And like I said, from the scene I saw from next week's episode, I am very interested to see where this particular storyline goes, because it's looking very, very dark.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about? Is it too spoilery to talk about the actual scene they showed for next week, or should we not deal with that?
Well, let's give it a clean break here, folks. If you don't want to hear about the scene, I believe it was the one they played during Talking Dead, because that's the only thing I've seen so far. Jump ahead now to the bloopers if there are any. But for those of you who do want to stick around, the scene we saw was Milton and Andrea in a dark room. They look through this grate and down to the floor below them, and they see a dentist or barber's chair. I guess if you go back farther enough in history, it's the same thing, but it has handcuffs on it. No, I'm serious. Behind the chair there is like a hospital equipment gurney with all kinds of saws and other implements of torture on it, and Andrea looks horrified for good reason. And she and Milton talk about that they are probably the traitors, or one of them is going to be the traitor. I believe Andrea says she's going to kill the governor, and then they both have to be very quiet as the governor walks in with a box of stuff, and that's about where the scene ends.
The one they showed at the end of the episode, at least on the encore presentation, was Andrea talking to Tyrese and crew and saying basically he is not the man you think he is. You know, that he's very I can't remember if she said he's very dangerous or there's basically something not right. So it looked like she's trying to win Tyrese and his gang over to whatever it is she has planned or her and Milton have planned. So
oh, very cool. I did not see that one.
Yeah. So I think
small army.
Yeah, so it definitely looks like Andrea. Things may not be as they appear in that. I think, and I kind of, like I said, I kind of got this at the end of the episode. She is not on his side. That she is playing at this point kind of both ends against the middle to make sure she comes out on top. No pun intended. From this one.
We've already had enough Andrea nudity this season. So.
Whoa,
Can you ever have enough?
hold your tongue.
Can you ever have enough?
More than I was expecting, I'll say.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing though.
No, it's not. I like Lori.
I mean, honestly, you have a lot of problems with Andrew's character. Was the amount of nudity really a problem you had with her this season?
No, I can't say it was.
She should be featured on Peter Griffin's side boob hour though for sure.
All right, everybody, have a good week. We'll see you next episode.
Thanks. Good night.
Stop out.
Please call me Mr. Steve Martin.
Should I listen to this voice now real quick?
No, we'll listen to it when we play it.
Oh, I'll listen. Okay.
Well, listen to it together. Yeah, we're all about togetherness here.
We find it's the sexiest way to do it.
What I like about my mic is I can type in the background and it doesn't pick it up anymore.
We like that too.
Yeah. The mic's not facing it, so it
That's
works.
some magic. That's some weird magic, isn't it?
Here's a little tiny wizard.
Let's light this candle. What do you
This
say?
is 86,
Probably.
Podcast professionalism.
and then. Oh,